January the 27th, 10 o'clock, slow-go meeting. At this time, I'm going to ask Senator Randy Robertson to lead us in the word of prayer. What number you use?
10.
10.
Number 10.
Yeah. If you'll bow your head with me briefly. Dear Heavenly Father, we humbly come before you this morning, Lord God, and we ask you once again, God, to shine your grace and light down upon us, that we may use our wisdom and compassion, Lord God, to do those things that are best for those that you have placed us in service to. We ask all of these things in the precious name of your Son, our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. I want to welcome everybody here. We have one bill on the agenda this morning. Senator Dixon, if you don't mind, give us the LC number you're working off of, and
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman.
and we'll go from there.
It's LC 471420.
Everyone has. Okay, continue.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and board members. Bringing forward a bill that would change the election makeup in Gwinnett County BOE from partisan to nonpartisan elections. I do want to be clear that this has nothing to do with the maps of the BOE and the way that's made up. We had a delegation meeting last Wednesday evening and on bipartisan support of BOE map that we all agreed on. So this is just a bill on changing from partisan to nonpartisan elections.
I got it. Let's turn it up a little bit here. Let's try it again. What number? One. Okay. Sorry. Try it now.
Okay, it's LC number
Can everybody hear now?
471420. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate you allowing me to have this committee meeting today. The bill that I'm bringing before you is to change the BOE from partisan elections to nonpartisan elections. It has nothing to do with the maps. The maps were agreed upon. We had a delegation meeting last Wednesday evening, and with bipartisan support, we did agree on map 1 that was presented from the BOE. They had 2 maps they had put forth. So this bill just deals with the nonpartisan issue, and that's simply it. But as a father of 3 children in the public school system, I understand firsthand the role that education plays in sculpting the next generation of leaders. As a legislator, I take great responsibility in representing the concerns of my constituents at the state level. And my children do attend the City of Beaufort schools, but I do want to make it clear that 95% of the constituents that I represent, their children attend public school in Gwinnett County. And so I am addressing their concerns. There's been some debate about that, in press conferences and whatnot, but just wanted to make that clear. And while education should be predominantly controlled at the local level, the state has an important responsibility of ensuring that students receive the best quality education. Over the past few months, I've had increasingly high number of constituents contacting me directly with concerns over the operations and the direction that our school board is going in Gwinnett County. I would also like to let it be known that experts like the Georgia School Board Association, they have publicly called for the General Assembly to make the State Board of Education nonpartisan along with all local boards. They are in favor of that. Also more recently, this was a position that the Gwinnett Chamber of Commerce took in 2020. They're in favor of nonpartisan elections at the local level, including the BOE and the BOC. Just wanted to make that on record as well. The education of our children should be a nonpartisan issue. We need to get politics out of our schools and off our school board to focus again on the education of our children. After almost 2 years of children being in and out of school dealing with the pandemic, our students need officials focused on closing the education gap. The focus should be on ensuring students catch up from post-COVID shutdowns of our schools where children were forced to be taught digitally. I care about nonpartisan school boards because the students should be the focus and not partisan politics on either side of the aisle. The bottom line is partisanship should not have a place in our school system. Students and their education should be the only priority. We need to remove party from the equation and ensure that everyone feels respected and heard. Through nonpartisan elections of school board members, we will take strong steps in ensuring this happens. Dozens of counties across the state have nonpartisan school boards. This isn't a radical idea, it's just purely common sense. And I believe it's about 61% of our school boards throughout the state are currently nonpartisan. With that, Mr. Chairman, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Senator Wow.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Senator Dixon, for presenting. I enjoy working with you. So, first question is an easy question. It's just a yes or no question. And the question is, do the majority of Gwinnett voters want a nonpartisan Board of Education?
I would say the majority of my constituents do, yes. I mean, the folks that I hear from that have students in the school system are for that. You know, even a lot of the folks I've talked to in the business community think it would be a good move, you know, given the direction our school system is going.
Okay. Because this is a question for which we actually do have quite a lot of data and community input, especially in this last year or two. And I'm just going to point to one first thing that we can talk about. There was a ballot question on the 2020 Republican primary ballot that solicited actually precisely this question, so it's actually very fortuitous that we're talking about this. And the question on that ballot was, and I'm just going to quote and read it, is, should candidates for Board of Education be required to declare their political party? So in that primary ballot in 2020, the high turnout, an overwhelming majority of the voters in Gwinnett County, which is 71.4%, wanted to keep Board of Education elections partisan. And this was in 2020, so very recently.
And that was the Republicans?
That was the Republican.
What was the percentage on the Democrat side? Do you have that data?
I do not have that data in front of me.
Okay.
It was on your primary ballot only, so there was no Democratic.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank
you. Yeah. So, the second piece of data that we have is that, you know, obviously we've been talking about redistricting a lot recently. So in advance of redistricting and drawing the new BOE maps, the BOE actually sent out a survey which garnered thousands of responses. So quite a good data set. And the overwhelming thrust of these responses were that Gwinnett school parents wanted minimal changes. I think that's something we heard quite often. And that there was no majority interest expressed in this survey in radically changing the BOE election process. So given that we do not have a majority of Gwinnett voters expressing that they want this change, why are we doing this?
Yeah, great question, Senator, and enjoy working with you as well. You know, I would say that within, you know, the answer back to that is a good many of our issues that have come up with the school board have started since that election in 2020, starting with the unwarranted firing of our longtime school superintendent with no merit whatsoever, and that was after that election. You know, moving forward from that, you know, parents concerned about you know, being heard with concerns with, you know, special education children, with mask mandates, wanting to talk about the implementation of CRT and other curriculum. You know, it's all happened in 2021. So I would venture to say that if that same poll was done today, it would probably be drastically different a year and a half later.
I think that's a fair point, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more. But would you say, and this is just another yes or no question, that decisions being made for a county should have the support of the majority of voters and residents of that county?
I would say that a majority of the folks that I represent want this change. They want partisan politics taken off of our school board.
So the people who emailed you and are reaching out to you. However, this decision affects the entirety
thousands of
entirety of the county. Correct? That this decision actually affects the entire county, even the part that you don't
does.
represent,
Yes, ma'am.
or that just I represent. Okay. One other question, and this is related to the elections process. Okay. If the BOE elections are changed to nonpartisan, the elections, and this is according to Georgia state law, and we reconfirmed this with legislative counsel here, the elections would need to be held during the May 24th primary elections instead of during the general elections, which happen in November, as you know. So just another yes or no question. Historically, do primary elections have lower turnout than general elections?
Senator, I'm terrible at yes and no questions. I think most politicians are.
50-50 chance.
Yeah, I understand. You know, what I would say to that was, in something that I did leave out in my opening remarks, is, you know, we've had, you know, community meetings. I was appointed to a special committee, study committee on nonpartisan schools across the state. So been involved in this, you know, quite a bit. And also have had dialogue with the former chairman, Everton Blair, who was in favor of going nonpartisan if we could have moved that election from May to November. You know, as far as voter turnout, you know, I would say I don't see where it's any more difficult to go vote in May versus November. In Georgia, the weather's quite nice in May.
I agree, and obviously we're in a selected subset of people who tend to want to turn out and vote. But of course, historically, we know that primary elections have lower turnout than general elections.
Yeah, I would argue this election cycle that we're going to have a surge, and this is not just for Gwinnett, but I think statewide and nationally, we're going to have a surge of folks that go out and vote for their BOE representatives, their Board of Education representatives, and then go up ballot from there.
I think that's a fair point. That actually brings me to my next point. Is this year in particular, we're going to be looking at some very interesting primary races. However, I don't think that the interest level on both sides is necessarily going to be that there's going to be parity. For example, we know that there are going to be some very high-profile Republican primaries, particularly at the top of the ticket. Less so somewhat on the Democratic side. So I think this is likely going to lead to, and I think this is fair to say, a partisan skew in who turns out for elections in May. And that the BOE elections are going to be down ballot from that, and that's going to skew who turns out. So the question is, does moving the BOE elections to May best serve the voters and families in Gwinnett, given this differential?
I think it makes no difference if the election's held in May or November. I think that folks, like I said, are so charged up about the direction our school system's going in that they will turn out to vote no matter when the election is. So I agree to disagree with you on that.
Okay, I agree to disagree too. And I have to say that I actually am relatively open to this idea, the concept, the ideology of a nonpartisan school board. I think it's fair to talk about and have these kinds of conversations. However, I think we do have to have these conversations in the setting of this larger context and the election process that we have. I actually have to say I'm a little bit surprised that we're back here again in this room. I think we were sitting in the same seats actually, trying to pass local legislation again without the majority support of the county delegation, and also lacking majority support from the voters of Gwinnett, because I feel like we've had this conversation in the past. So given that we actually do have this wealth of input from voters and that we've gathered on this topic both in 2020 from the ballot question and having done this survey with thousands and thousands of responses from the BOE, I would insist that you ask voters of Gwinnett for input on this question in specific. You said, well, maybe if we ask them again, they'll give a different answer. That's fair enough. I think that's maybe worth exploring, right? I'm very open to this idea of asking voters and representing what the majority of voters want, right? So maybe we should make it a referendum question on the ballot this November, get everyone to weigh in, and based on that, have changes if they're warranted take effect in 2024, as opposed to having an election in less than 4 months when we don't even have the finalized BOE maps yet. And I think that's the conclusion.
Thank you, Senator. Did you have a question?
Not at this time.
Okay. All right. We have quite a few.
Chairman, I do have one question.
What number you?
I'm number 12.
12. Senator Gooch.
Senator, I'm not asking this question because I know the answer, because I don't. Do you know of other offices in Gwinnett County that are nonpartisan, like city council members, judges, and so forth?
Yes, sir. Yeah, city council and several of the judges are nonpartisan.
Okay. Thank you.
We have quite a few signed up to speak, so we're going to hold it to comments to 2 minutes. I'm going to start. I'm going to let our senator go first. So if you've got anything else you need to go take care of, Senator, speak. Give us your name and.
Name, Cyril. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
For the record, dear.
Senator Nikki Merritt, representing the 9th District in Gwinnett County, and that will be my Decula, Lawrenceville, Snellville, Lilburn, and Grayson areas. So I'm just above Senator Dixon there. And I do serve, like him, over 210,000 in my constituency, in my district. And out of our senators, there are 6 of us, 6 senators in Gwinnett County, and we roughly have.
Back up.
Oh, my thank you.
Uh-oh.
What's that?
You want to go? You want to move over to the other one?
Let's move on.
It's actually called interference with government property. It can be a misdemeanor or a felony based on the amount of
Can y'all hear me now? Can you hear me? I don't hear me.
I got you.
Okay.
Try it now.
So in Gwinnett, we have a total of 7 senators, and I am one of the 7. Senator Dixon, Senator Al. We roughly represent the same amount of constituents. We're talking like over 2,000, over 210,000. Out of that, as he said, 95% of his constituency is for this. But do the math of the other 6 senators, we're not seeing the same level of interest in making a nonpartisan board. The numbers just don't mesh out. And I would ask the board, ask Senator Dixon for that data, even from his own constituency, that data be presented to all of you. I am planning on drafting a Senate resolution that would address this very same issue for the state of Georgia. And it is simply to ask that if we're going to continue to pursue this matter, let's leave it to the voters of Georgia. Let's put it on a ballot referendum in November, and we're going to make it for the entire state of Georgia. And let's see what they think. Because this issue is so polarizing at this point, I really don't think it's up to legislators to make this choice right now. We should let the voters choose, all of our voters. So that's just my entry now. But and I have been getting the emails from those that say they've lived in Gwinnett for over 20 plus years, but Republicans have been in control of the Gwinnett elected positions for at least a decade. Yet there was no call for nonpartisan boards through all those years. Now, parents, if you're unhappy about a particular candidate, our democracy allows you to run a candidate of your choice. You have to win an election. Put your best candidate forward to the body of people in your district. Losing is not a cause for overhauling policy. Instead, this issue has become an ideological battleground over school mass mandates and truth in education. Parents who are involved in their child's education have a right to know which board members support their ideological views, which can easily be ascertained by party affiliation. Now that Gwinnett County is flipped, we are just witnessing a power grab over local control. And my Republican colleagues have always been a proponent of local control. So now we have a problem with it.
Senator, I'll let you go over
Okay.
a minute.
I'm just going to say this. Arguing that school boards are somehow apolitical because of the presence of an R or a D beside the name does not hold muster. The politics are already there. In fact, the identifiers just shed light on the politics. Honestly, this change would not solve the problem, but it will make it worse. You will still not get the long-term desired election outcome. A evolving demographic ensures Democrats will continue to win. You can't run from it. Go check your population numbers. People of color, Democrats, will continue to assume every level of seat in Gwinnett County.
Thank you, Senator. We done went out of time. You got to quit. All right. Senator Robinson.
Just a point of clarification. You used the word assumption a couple of times. So I guess I'm a Republican.
No.
Not registered,
No
none of
way.
that good stuff with the local parties and all, but I don't have to carry a card around in my pocket that says I'm a Republican.
Mm-hmm.
I have a life history, raised by a single mom in Harris County who raised me up somewhere between the belt and the Bible, and I think most of it was on the belt side. But I was a single father with 2 children, and they were in the Muskogee County school system in Columbus, Georgia. So I guess the assumption is that because I'm a Republican, that with my son and daughter, I I have a natural tendency to allow I have certain opinions that are concreted, locked in because I'm a Republican when it comes to my children's education.
Okay. I would say yes, only because usually Republicans fall in line with more conservative views. Just
Okay.
as Democrats.
And
are
I
the
guess my
alternative.
counter to that would be I think most of my views came from the Bible side and not from the Republican side. And at what point in demographically are we making assumptions that the way people look determines whether it's gender, skin color, whatever, that determines what party they're a part of?
I mean, the data supports that. How people vote, how we're seeing voting data, who the voters are. We have that information.
Data samples.
We have data on every election. We have data on race. We have data on what your political views are.
Yeah.
We have that data. We know how people are voting.
And where does that data come from in Gwinnett County?
That is coming from voters. Just voter data. If we go and pull what their views are, any polls.
Who is we?
I would say this. I would pull that, for instance, for my
Right.
campaign. So
Smart.
my political,
Right. Your team.
my team
Yeah.
would pull that data,
Okay.
and we know who our voters are.
And
We
it-
know who we're speaking to,
Okay.
and this issue to me falls in line with that. And it also, again, it helps our voters identify
Right.
if I believe what you believe and making that choice accordingly.
Okay. 'Cause in
And I think
mine-
that is important.
In mine, I mine data too, and the vast majority of my neighbors on next to my property are all people of color, and I know they vote for me, and they vote for me not because they're a Democrat or Republican. They vote for me because they are nonpartisan when it comes to who they want to be their state senator, and so.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean they have to ask.
I
for a
mean, I don't know how
particular-
that's
in a-
not
in a
because you run
primary.
as a Republican. So
Yeah, 'cause
my
mine is data. Mine is based on data because I
Right.
go and knock on their doors and put signs in their yards
And
and all this other
that
stuff.
could be 'cause
so what I'm
you're-
saying is I think we have to be very careful when we start isolating people based on skin color, based on nationality, and when we start talking about and I've had the opportunity to bring this up in my own district when we'd go meet with groups, myself and my colleague out of Muskogee County, Senator Ed Harbison. Somebody asked us the question, what's the most important elected position in the United States of America? And my colleague, of course, with seniority, went first to answer the question. When my opportunity came, I told him, it's a school board member. And it impacts every parent, not just the parents that elected you, not just the parents that elected Senator Dixon, but it impacts every parent. It determines what our jail population is going to be. It determines what our prison population is going to be. It determines what our homeless rate is going to be. It determines so much in society, the decisions made by school board members. Now, see, I'm blessed. 3 of my largest counties, they're all nonpartisan school board members. And I've got African-American school board members elected in majority white districts serving in leadership positions on the school board. Not only are they on the school board, but they serve in leadership positions on the school board. So maybe I just come from a part of the state where we don't see the things that are seen in Gwinnett County, which makes me appreciate the fact of who I serve. So thank you. I appreciate that.
Let me just respond. So to that point, that whole point that you just made, then it does not hurt that we keep the identifier D or R based on what you just told me.
Oh, absolutely it hurts because I can show you examples of schools that perform as well as the schools in Gwinnett County that are served by nonpartisan school board members that are some of the most compassionate, child-driven members. And from what I heard during special session and from what I've heard today, and we tend to point the needle. No, I think I'm in a lot better shape, but I appreciate you. I appreciate the respect that you and Senator Dixon have for each other, and you and Senator Al and the way y'all are working this out. And I'm thankful I don't have this problem. But thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. All right, now we have Representative Mitchell. Oh, what number are you? 13?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Go ahead.
The other comment I just want to make is in no way is this a power grab by Republicans that I keep hearing. Going nonpartisan gives no advantage to either party. It takes the party off the equation and out of our school system.
Okay.
Thank you.
Representative Mitchell? Okay. Dr. Johnson? As I said, state your name and
Yes,
for the record.
sure. Dr. Therese Johnson. I am speaking for myself. I am a part of the Gwinnett County School Board chair, but I'm speaking again for myself as an individual, as a constituent of Gwinnett County. I have the same question as Senator Michelle All. Why? Why now? There has never been a political push to make Gwinnett County Board of Education nonpartisan until now. Why? I ask you to consider that the reasons are rooted in retaliation and political agendas. If you move to approve this, you are supporting a bill based on bigotry, because this bill and others that come before you are targeting people of color and attempting to suppress their vote, erase their historical truths, and censor diverse perspectives. These bills coming before you are rooted in political motivations to marginalize people of color in Gwinnett County. SB 369 targets the citizens of Gwinnett County, and it ironically is a political move to suppress the vote because of nonpartisan elections are typically held in May. It may cause confusion and dilute the voices of people of color. Again, my question is, why now? This bill should not be focused on hate for one person, and the community should not be punished because of political ideologies that negatively impact diverse people of Gwinnett. It is important, more so than ever, for people to have the necessary data to make informed choices. Party designation provides transparency for people to know who they are voting for and to ensure that their values are aligned. Again, I ask, why are you doing this now? Republicans lost many races in Gwinnett, and this current nonpartisan push is rooted in partisan politics and attempts to usurp the power from the people to push political agendas that may not align with the majority of the people. Why now? This bill is not fair to the people. The people deserve the right to choose how their election should be. No one person or small group of people should take these actions based on bad intent. The people need to be informed and have the option to select how they want their elections. This nonpartisan effort was not a concern until now. So, why? The majority of the GCPS Board of Education members are registered as Democrats and people of color. Only now is it an issue, and only now are they trying to make changes that negatively target the people of Gwinnett. If you vote yes on this bill, you are supporting the actions of individuals who are attempting to try to make the board the way they want it, and not the way of the people. Our school board depicts the dimensions of diversity, and we represent the people who voted for us and the people who share our values. We represent a diverse community of Gwinnett. So please allow the people to have transparency to ensure that there is diversity representation, to ensure that they have the option to select how they want their elections. Thank you.
Senator Gooch?
Will you take a few questions?
No.
Thank you.
Okay. How you pronounce it? Michael. I'm gonna let you. I would butcher it up, buddy.
We have 3 minutes?
Just 2 minutes.
2 minutes. My name is Michael Rudnick, R-U-D-N-I-C-K. I appreciate you guys giving me the time today. I'll be as brief as I can. My family I'm a parent here in Gwinnett County. My family started my son's education in Gwinnett County in 2012, and he's in the special needs program. We moved away to the state of Kentucky. My job took me there. The educational system there was so poor for special education that we left my job with notice, but to specifically target coming back to Gwinnett County, the school district and the school system that we're in now. Gwinnett County, when we moved back, has been known for tremendous special needs programs as well as overall education, and that was due to the leadership of the school system. The last 3 years have been a mess, plain and simple. They've been an absolute mess. I spoke before another committee last month, and I was asked a few questions. One of the questions I was asked was, how is nonpartisan beneficial to divide on the issues like masks and CRT and things like that? And the reason I want a nonpartisan election is because I want leaders elected that are local parents making decisions to support, not because out-of-state money is coming in to save the day. I don't want candidates that have an unfair advantage. I want parents to do their research on their candidates, and I want, again, candidates elected that have put the work in to make their stance known on the issues. Our former school board chairman, over half of his over $100 donations came from out of state in the 2018 election. $1,000 came from Steve Jobs' widow. I don't know what stakes she has in Gwinnett County or why she would give $1,000 to a campaign being run in Gwinnett County. Another question I got asked was, do I feel like the education quality has gone downhill? That's a tough question to answer because I live here and I'm a stakeholder and I care about the community. Leadership trickles downhill, I will tell you that. Our leadership is the poorest it's ever been in the history of this school system. Those leaders make policies, and those policies affect students, teachers, and staff. Those principals and teachers have to enact those policies. So do I think the school system has gone downhill? Yes, unfortunately I do, and I feel that that's because of leadership. One policy they're contemplating making, our school board's contemplating making, is only allowing speakers at our school board meeting to speak on issues that are on the agenda. I've been going to school board meetings for over 18 months. Special needs education has never been on the agenda one time. I would never be able to speak. That's what I speak about primarily. I go and I speak to advocate for my son and the other special needs children in the community. With this bill that I ask you to vote yes on, voters will have to research the best candidate and make the choice, and candidates will have to work hard to get their stance out to the voters. That's what I want. I want parents involved in the Board of Education, and I want parents that care and stakeholders that care to vote for those parents. Teachers are leaving in droves in our county, and that's because of our school board, plain and simple. The last thing I would ask is that anybody that opposes this, why do you oppose it? Why do we need a Republican or Democrat by our name for a Board of Education election? It's like a judicial election. We don't need an R or a D by our name for a Board of Education seat. It's unnecessary. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Stephanie? As I say, state your name.
Yes, sir. Hi, everyone. My name is Stephanie Ali. I am the Policy Director for New Georgia Project. And so thanks for having me here. So I was here in November. Not sure if everyone remembers, but hi. And I'm not surprised to be back again, although a little disappointed. I do want to applaud everyone, especially Senator Dixon, for taking our advice to hear from the community. There were hearings in December. Probably should have been more clear with my advice in November, which was to listen to the advice that was given then. As Senator Al pointed out, we know that your own party, up to 71% in Gwinnett, but 60 to 67% in other counties, opposes this bill, in the sense that they literally said they oppose this option. We have nothing against nonpartisan elections in general. Like, we're just with Dr. Al, like, it can often be a really great thing to get the best candidates. As the gentleman ahead of me said, it pushes people to research more. But when it's motivated by the fact that people of color are winning, when it's motivated by the fact that your donors are asking you to do so, and it's motivated by the fact to subvert the will of the people, then it's wrong. Nonpartisan elections like Dr. Al pointed out, are held in the spring. And as the senator said, it makes no difference. But I disagree there. In Gwinnett, 70% of the residents are people of color who will likely be not as adequately represented if the elections are moved. Why do I say that? I love Senator Robertson always coming with the facts, always asking where they come from. So here's some facts. In 2020, turnout for the general election, for the primary election for black men was just around 30%. And it was 61% in the general election. Turnout for black women, black females, was 39% in the primary and 71% for the general. So the timing of the elections does make a huge difference, almost double of percentage turnout. Again, I'm not going to harp again on the fact that 71% of your own voters disapprove of this, but I agree. I think asking the question again is a hugely important thing. People's minds change, and you're right. Lots of issues have gone on with education. I have been a harsh advocate for public schools my entire life, and my son is nearing the age to be in public schools, and there's a lot of things that are scaring me about them now. So I fully agree with you. Ask people questions. Their minds change. But you haven't done that. Not to everyone. Finally, I want to ask one question that I hope that the sponsors of this bill can look into. The bill appears to be general legislation, but OCGA 21-2-139 states that the General Assembly may provide by local act for the election in nonpartisan elections to fill offices for local boards of election. So I'm not a lawyer, might be misreading, but would love to know how the General Assembly would have the authority under SB 369, which is a general bill, rather than a local act, to make Gwinnett school boards nonpartisan. Thank you.
Senator Robertson.
Yes, sir.
One quick question, if you don't mind. Why do you think, now the black voter turnout that you were talking about between primary and general, it sounds like those numbers, was that the United States, was that Georgia, was that Gwinnett?
That was Gwinnett specifically.
Okay, great. Why do you think that, in using your words, so I want to be clear that I'm not twisting anything, why do you think black men and women in Gwinnett County turn out more in general than primary?
There's literally schools of research around this. We have an entire research team.
Right. So you should have. So that should be a pretty simple question.
So I will give you the very top lines.
Yeah.
There's multiple reasons. One being the fact that it's higher stakes. It's kind of the final decision making. I guess you can kind of think about it as like the final in a bracket. Secondly, it's the fact that there's just more attention paid to it. People hear about it on the news. They hear about it from colleagues. There's more canvassers. There's more mailers. There's a lot more attention altogether on it. Third is the fact that if you are working a blue-collar job, which are disproportionately held by black and brown community members, then you have to bide your time. And no, I'm sorry, I cannot tell you numbers straight off the top of my head for that, but I will be happily to get them to you. I will help. I will have them emailed to you.
And just to help you out, you know I'm a labor person, right? You know I'm a union person, right?
I love it.
Okay.
We will get it to you.
So, yeah, I think you're going to find that's not necessarily true. But what I'm thinking about on the election side, because in Muskogee County, Columbus, Georgia, they elect their mayor in May, and they elect their city council members in May,
right?
And they elect school board members in May. And we look at the numbers there are many times that there's really no deviation. Now, of course, there's deviation on the particular races because there are primaries mixed in there. In a year of presidential, of course, there'd be those partisan races, but there are several nonpartisan, and so we don't see the deviation. So I was just curious about that because you're right. I do love numbers, and I do appreciate the fact that your organization is doing the data mining and trying to look at this. But if you could get to me offline, and I'd love to see the primary numbers, especially related to the black and males and females, the lower, because I would think that means candidates are doing a much less job of getting the information out prior to the primaries, because any of us that run for office, the job of informing the voter that we're running and what we stand for rests with us.
I don't disagree with you on that.
And of course, your organizations and stuff like that. But thank you so much for that.
Absolutely. And I will say, I'm glad that Muskogee County is doing a great job. And when Muskogee County comes up, you said that you already have a nonpartisan board, so I'm glad that that works for Muskogee.
Yeah, and we used to have an appointed board, so you can think of the misery that caused. So thank you.
I'm sure. Thank you, sir.
Senator Al.
Thank you so much. Just to respond to your point, Senator Robinson, because I think you bring up a great point. It's really great that your turnout in May for the municipal elections is so high in Muskogee County. I think that's really something to admire and emulate. One thing I worry about in this setting, with respect to this bill, is that the amount of time, if we switch the Board of Education elections to May for this year, that is less than 4 months from now. And we have not even yet finalized the BOE maps. So I wonder, and I can pose this as a question to our person testifying, is what effect would you say that it would have to switch the date of an election for sort of a down ballot race in such short order without adequate time to publicize and make people aware of this change that they did not ask for?
Right. Yeah, I would push back slightly in the fact that it would actually only be 2 months because qualifying is in March. And so that gives us the idea that, everybody jokes that elections start basically as soon as the last one's over. Y'all know that because y'all are like getting the whole calendar out so you know when you can start fundraising and running again. So it's the idea that you would have fewer than 8 weeks to tell someone who's running, give them the time to do the research like the gentleman before me said, get that literature out the door. I mean, Senator Robertson, you're right. There is a lot of emphasis put on the people running to do that work, but people are, the school board doesn't pay you to live off of that money all the time. So people got to find times to step away from their current job. They have to find time to get their staff hired, get their volunteers organized, and that takes weeks to do. So asking someone to run a campaign on an 8-week schedule would be, I think, detrimental to giving people that time to do that research and find the right person. That's, again, for me. I can't give you direct research, and I would be happy to look into if there is any.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And to my colleague, I want to say in that with hypothetically, because we're guessing as to what impact it would have, because I believe if the Senate races went to nonpartisan in Senate District 29, that I would still win.
Senator Gooch.
Yes, I read. Could I ask you a question? Do you live in Gwinnett County? I didn't hear that earlier.
I don't. I live in DeKalb, so I'm just going to make the point that both myself and Senator Dixon have the same relationship with Gwinnett County Schools.
Gotcha. And so do you support partisan races throughout Georgia?
I'm sorry?
Do you support all elected offices being partisan in Georgia?
I wouldn't say that I support all races being partisan or nonpartisan, no.
How do you differentiate?
I think it depends on the situation and the lead up to it and the research that supports it. I would have to make sure that if something were being approached, we had the time and the support from the voters to know what they sat with on the issue, in the sense that have they had their voices heard on it? Does the issue relate to like a historic background of this race has historically been partisan, nonpartisan? That sort of kind of history. It's very piecemeal.
So apparently, looking at a quick glance of Gwinnett County today, there's judges in Gwinnett County that are nonpartisan. Probate judges, magistrate judges, Superior Court judges. Would you support turning all of those to a partisan office?
We don't, as an organization, have a stance on partisan judge races, but I will say it is very much in the favor of the community for there to be more information on a judge's history, their stances, and how they align politically. So I wouldn't say, and we don't have a position on whether that should be moved to nonpartisan or not, but it would be helpful for there to be more general information. And if that comes with a party, again, having just sat through Senator Robertson's conversation with Senator Merritt, I understand that not everyone agrees that party alignment is the end-all be-all of how you align mentally or politically altogether. But that is somewhat related. So no, I can't say one way or the other if we have a stance on it, but I would love for the people of Gwinnett County to have insight on if they would like to see it or not.
Thank you.
Senator Dixon.
Yeah, just would like to make a comment. Our relationship with Gwinnett County Schools is totally different. I represent over 200,000 people in Gwinnett. 95% of which that have children in school go to Gwinnett County Schools. So I have an obligation to my constituents that you do not have.
Sure. And
Thanks.
and
I'm sorry, I've heard that narrative so many times, and it's
Okay.
no, it's not.
We're moving on. Next is Kathy Lowe. Did I say that? State your name, though, for the record, please, ma'am. And ladies and gentlemen, we're going to really get back on track here. 2 minutes is going to be 2 minutes.
My name is Kathy Lowe. Thank you for listening to me. If you would have told me 2 years ago I would be speaking before you, I would have said, get out. I am a parent. I have 3 kids that have been educated in the Gwinnett County school system. I never paid attention to the school board. I never paid attention to politics. I was just happy, and now here I am. 2 years ago, I started to notice political changes. Gwinnett County Public Schools is an attractive target as the 13th largest school district in the nation. I read an article that was published October 26, and it was called How the Fight for American Suburbs Schools Started in Public Schools. And Everton Blair was quoted, "I need to inspire Democratic challengers in school board races, and they need to win, and younger progressives of color would suddenly have a commanding 4-to-1 majority of their own." And I was very surprised at the political tone that was taken in that. And I really woke up when they fired Alvin Wilbanks for no cause. And they had to pay out his contract of $500,000. And that started the letters of complaint to Cognia. And I never heard of Cognia up until a year ago. Cognia is our accrediting agency. They're a third-party agency that comes in and scrutinizes processes and cries foul when there are issues. And Cognia came in for a special review and said some board members were overstepping their bounds or were behaving questionably. Cognia interviewed 124 GCPS employees, parents, and community members and found that the board members were not acting properly. The report highlighted social media posts by board members that sought money or were found racially offensive. This was a quote from the report. Parent, teacher, and principal interviews indicated the school board's unprofessional behaviors do not contribute to the positive student outcomes. Your activities are reported as embarrassing. And we're here for positive student outcomes. I'm here for my kids. I'm not a special interest person. I'm just a mom.
Okay. Thank you, Kathy. Ann? Yes. State your name, please.
Good morning. My name's Ann Lafavore. I'm a resident of Gwinnett County. I'm also a direct descendant of a slave. Certain comments that have been made where people are speaking for black people, I'm offended. I'm totally offended. I'm here to speak for my ancestors and my elders that are still alive. I remember the civil rights movement because I was born and I lived that civil rights movement. What we're doing today, we don't want to name it. It's racism, and it's racism in Gwinnett County. And I'm gonna call it what it is. I'm seeing parents at the school board meeting making attacks not because of political parties. Let's not play that. It's not about Democrats or Republicans. It's because that representation are black people. And I've seen this hate before. I've seen it from your parents. Based on my age, I've seen it, and now I'm seeing it again. I remember, because I didn't go to an integrated school. I remember segregation. I remember when we used to hear, would you want your child to sit next to one of them? And I'm one of them. I'm a human being. We need to do better. I remember when the law said that my grandmother could not drink out of a fountain, couldn't go to a bathroom because of the color of her skin. Let's be real here, folks. Let's do better. Let's face this. We voted these elected officials in. I just heard someone said that there were all kinds of problems. I'm a business owner in Gwinnett. I fight for the right to have a top-of-the-line school. It helps
Okay.
me make money. That is not the problem.
Thank you, ma'am. What's number you 10?
Yes, ma'am. I was curious, when did you meet my parents?
Well, I didn't meet your parents, but I said I've met and I've dealt with parents
Yes, ma'am.
that used the excuse,
Yes,
that
ma'am.
said,
Well,
and
you- well, you said-
are you gonna let me
No,
answer
ma'am,
the
because you
question?
said your. You said I've seen it from your parents.
Yes, and
Okay.
that's a general parents,
Oh.
it's not your parent specifically.
Okay.
But I am questioning if I had met your parent, I would probably see the same behavior.
Okay, well, I appreciated that, ma'am, because I wanted to try to verify who the racist was. Thank you.
Okay, I have no problem with it, but I don't have the power to be a racist. But I do have, no, I speak the truth.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Who is this? Salia? Sania? Okay. As I asked everybody, state your name for the record.
Yes, sir. Samia Abdul.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for having this hearing. I really appreciate you all for being here. I just want to start by stating that I am against the bill, and this is the reasoning why. I am an immigrant to the United States of America, and I'm sure many of you maybe. I am an immigrant to the United States of America, and I just want to kind of give you my personal, as I see you from this place, I see you just an eloquent, diverse group of legislators that are trying to do good for the children. This is how I see you. And I see you this way because I come from a country that sometimes is very difficult to find justice. And when you have felt what injustice looks like and losing your voice and not being able to vote and living under so much suppression that you had to leave your country to come here, you understand the power of being an American citizen. And the diversity of parties and the diversity of the idea to differ and the idea to be able to be different. This is the why me as a parent who is a parent of a Gwinnett County, I want that for my children. I want my children to know that those who represented them and their school are Republican, are Democrat, anybody how somebody wants to identify. And that identification is in the root of the American democracy. When you want to legislate on me that I lose my vote and my children lose the idea of civic engagement, you're trying to water something down that is so key in the American democracy. It's to show our children civic engagement and how that differ. And this is the reason why I see you such a beautiful, wonderful group of legislators. Right? And I want you to hold that in your heart. Do you want your children to understand that difference is necessary and important in America and is valued? Or do you want to give them the idea we go into non-partisan because really we just don't like that party or we don't like this idea. So therefore, let's suppress that idea so it doesn't root. Every idea matters. This is how we raise our children. This is the reason why I love being an American citizen. This is why I raise my children, to let them know that America has the value of diversity.
Thank you, ma'am.
I just want you to understand that in the heart and know that, Senator Dixon, I really appreciate your motive, whatever that is, but I just want to say one last thing. The platinum rule is to ask people how you want to be treated and let them know how you want to be treated. I really appreciate you and your constituency for having the right to choose whether they want partisan or non-partisan, but that does not come down on 1 million voters who wants to choose who they want to vote for. So with all respect to your constituency and the parents, I just want to say also that we have a voice, and having a hearing
ma'am.
at 10 o'clock in the morning, that's taking a lot of, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bentley Hudson.
Hello, everybody.
Hey.
My name is Bentley Hudgens. I'm an organizer. I've been in this room several times in the years past working for different organizations, but today I'm speaking for myself. I am the child of a teacher. I am the godchild of a teacher. My aunt's a teacher. My grandmother was a teacher. My great-grandmother was a teacher. My great-grandfather was a superintendent. I come from a family of educators. I used to help my mother in her classrooms every day. So this education matters to me, and that's why I'm here today. And I will be honest, I don't live in Gwinnett County. But I care about education in one of our state's most populous counties. I vehemently oppose making this bill, making the Gwinnett County Board of Education nonpartisan, and it is gaslighting people to say that you are doing this for nonpartisan reasons when you know that you are making this process more partisan. Like this bill is in direct response to black people getting elected to office in Gwinnett County. And to come back and say this to people who are raising their voices is gaslighting. So, thank you for your time. I urge you to vote no on this bill and don't let it go any further. And I urge you to be honest with people when they come up here. Thank you.
Thank you for staying within the 2 minutes, too. Steve Smith. State your name, sir.
Good morning. I'm a Gwinnett County father. I am a real estate agent. I have a job.
State your name.
Steve Smith.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For the record.
And what I'm hearing roll around this room is just frankly disgusting. You've got people who are saying, oh, a 10 o'clock meeting, people can't make it. I'm here. I have a job. It was important to me. To say that voters can't make a May primary, well, they have calendars. It's no different than November. And frankly, for people who say that civic engagement is important, the statistics showing that 30% only seem to think so in May says more about the other 70 who don't. When we elect officials, we expect them to represent our best needs. And at this point, 180,000 kids are getting all sorts of partisan politics and not a lot of education. Our school district was ranked 32nd. It dropped to 66th last year. That's concerning. As a business owner, I'm concerned seeing people want to leave the county in droves because they're not thrilled with the representation they have. Multiple senators from Gwinnett have said there's no support from this from our constituents. But you're not hearing that much negativity either. You're just not hearing anything because they don't care. They're not paying attention. But the people who do care and want nonpartisan elections in our county are asking for it for the following reasons. Too many people have ridden the coattails of party money to an easy electoral victory in a legislative office. Oh, D, just straight down the ballot. They have no idea who they elected. All they know is that their county party said, this is who we want. And with that comes political favors. There are organizations in this room who backed Democratic candidates and are now asking for favors. Last week when we had our chairperson election, Karen, we're watching you. Are you for us or against us? They threatened our last chairman. Do what we told you to do when we elected you in a public forum. That's why we don't want partisan politics in our elections. Independent candidates have to actually campaign, tell you who they are and how they will best represent you and your children. And sitting on a ballot and strictly getting clicked off because you got a D at the bottom of a major election, I'd rather you have to tell me who you are in May when it's not a governor election, because if you show up to vote, you actually care. If you don't show up to vote, it must not have been that important.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Penny Poole. Go into the other mic, dear. Thank you. State your name.
My name is Penny Poole. I am a 35-year-plus resident. Can you hear me? I'll get closer. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Great. First of all, good morning to this austere committee. Chair, my name is Penny Poole. I'm a 35-year-plus resident of Gwinnett County. My husband is a native of Gwinnett County. I am here this morning. First of all, I'd like to reiterate what Anne Lafleur said. I am the granddaughter of an enslaved, great-granddaughter of an enslaved person. My mother and father both grew up as sharecroppers in South Carolina. Both she and my father were not allowed to attain education beyond the 6th grade because of racism, because of mores and values that have been passed down. They were not given the opportunity to have a school system as other white children were able to go. At that time, they were called colored. So colored people had no place to go learn in Colleton County, South Carolina. So let me go down further. I want to say that Gwinnett is not Muskogee, it is not Brunswick, it is not Roswell, it is not Athens, it's not Cotulla, it's not Macon, it's not Noonan, Homerville, McDonough, Grovestown, Statesboro, or Cordele. These are the places that the signers of this bill come from. That's SB 369. We are not y'all. As a matter of fact, in Gwinnett County, the politics are jurisdiction. Politics are local. The demographics and cultures, mores and values are not representative of your location. Even the prayer today did not represent all the people in the room. In Gwinnett, you would need to pray to those who practice Judaism, Islam, Hinduism, Buddhism, Sikhism, animism. In this room, you only pray to Jesus.
Okay, your time's up, Ms. Pooh.
Ma'am,
Ms.
sir?
Pooh, Ms. Pooh, you done gone over your 2 minutes. Thank
Sir,
you.
I'm not the only one who did.
I know.
I would respectfully like to ask the committee if I may continue, because I only have 1 more minute left. Respectfully.
I'll give you 30 seconds.
I vehemently oppose SB 369. Senator Clint Dixon, his district, is not representative of the county. As a matter of fact, it is about 1% of the entire million people. The school board, it is 10%. It's about 100,000 people. Let me clarify that. The school board, that's for 2010 numbers. The school board is 178,000, and 36% are Latinx, 36% Black. That's 18% white, and then that is 12% Asian. Those numbers reflect a community that does not look like this board. Those numbers reflect a community.
Ms. Pooh,
yes,
your time's
sir.
up. Thank you.
Well, thank you for that, sir.
All right.
I'm pretty sure you
Next.
have no questions for me.
Santa. Am I?
Mr. Chair. There's 3 people that need to add their names.
Pardon me?
They need to add some people didn't get here in time to sign up, so they want to add their names.
We got other meetings. We got to give up the room. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. May peace be upon everyone who is present here. My name is Sana Abdul Sattar, and I'm an immigrant from Dubai. I'm also a single mom of 2 children going to elementary school, and I'm also a Muslim educator. So I'm pretty nervous. This is my first time speaking in this platform, but I am not here to oppose any bill. I'm not here to encourage any bill, but my main goal over here is for all the officials to do some research about mental health of the children. So even if we choose partisan or non-partisan, it should not affect the mental health of our children. I know because of COVID and post-pandemic, my kids, like Mr. Dixon said, they were forced to do virtual school. And most of being a teacher, I know how kids are being affected because of COVID. So whatever is going on over here, talking about racism, color, freedom of speech, freedom of religion, I only want to say that it should not affect the mental health of our children, and that's why I'm here. I took less than 2 minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for respecting. Okay. Then we have, this one, I can't even read the writing.
Which one?
Right here.
Runa
Runa
Rahman.
Hi, it's Rua.
Okay.
I apologize, my handwriting
Can you state your name, dear?
Yes, sir.
Hi, good morning. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Awesome. Good morning, y'all. My name is Rua, and I grew up in Gwinnett County. I'm glad that Senator Dixon doesn't want our students falling behind, but I am a little bit disappointed because we're not, instead of working to support our teachers or working to fully fund our programs, we're instead spending time on this. But besides that, we expect this change to happen in May, which is 4 months away. And I don't know about y'all, but January has flown by for me. Like, I can't believe it ends on Monday. Yet somehow we're expected to make this change and not confuse people, and I just don't see that. So if you'll bear with me. I personally volunteered in Gwinnett County as a non-partisan poll monitor, where a part of my job was to answer everyone's question regardless of political affiliation. We had quite a few people turned away that day. I was there for about 4 hours and this was the actual day of the election, not early voting, where they were turned away because they were in the wrong precinct. Now, people were supposed to receive that change. The Secretary of State was supposed to send out that information, but things get lost in the mail. People, get a lot of spam. So they were confused. Thankfully, they had come early enough that we could help them, and they were outside so they could use their phones. But imagine with me for a second. If I'm a voter and I'm at this point at my voting booth and I'm about to make a decision and I see a new race that I did not expect on my ballot, one of 2 things is going to happen. Because they cannot take out their phones, they can't do research very quickly. Instead, they're forced to either skip that race, which is what I do because I don't like to vote for something I don't know about, or what we've seen is that sometimes people will just pick the first name they see on the ballot. Is that an informed voter? No, that is not an informed voter. So I repeat, this actually impacts all voters. We only have 4 months to tell people about this change on their ballot, a change that many of them were not expecting. Senators, I cannot stress this enough. There is a grave danger in continuing to politicize every election at every level. In this case, while I know it sounds good that this is a non-partisan election, confused voters will have no ability to become more informed once they enter the voting booth. I agree with Michael that people should be informed when they vote, but this does the opposite of that. This also opens voters up to manipulation. And is that really what we want? At what cost? I strongly urge you to reject this bill and reconsider. It's bad for voters, it's bad for our county, and it's bad for our democracy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hopefully that was under 2 minutes.
You got
yeah,
questions?
Real quick, you realize that if you're a partisan voter or if you're a partisan candidate in a May election, you're only on one ballot.
Correct.
Like whichever party you declare.
Mm-hmm.
If you're nonpartisan, you're on both ballots.
Yes.
So when somebody went in there, it wouldn't be a new race. It would already be somebody they're familiar with, because if the person had ran in the previous election and been elected, whether they were Democrat or Republican,
Sure.
they would, that individual, whether they voted for them as a Democrat or Republican, would be familiar with that individual. So when you go in to in primary, you can ask for 3 different types of ballots.
Right.
You can ask for the Republican, the Democrat, or the nonpartisan.
Yes.
So if everybody is nonpartisan, in places throughout the state of Georgia, this occurs every May primary,
Right.
where they go in there. Some of the people they're voting for are in primary races, and some of the people they're voting for are in nonpartisan elections.
Yes.
And so it's all on the same ballot.
Yeah.
So
I'm
so
familiar with
yeah,
ballots.
they
It's
would be
just-
they would be very familiar
Right.
with the candidates, because these would be candidates who were already in office, or candidates who had qualified and decided to run for the seat as a new candidate.
That's where where I respectfully disagree, because if I'm going in and I've done my research ahead of time with a ballot, if there's a change to it, or I'm expecting, for example, that I volunteered for a candidate, or a candidate showed up at my door and talked to me, there's no way for a candidate between now and May to enter the race, raise the money they need, get the volunteers, and knock every door to tell them about this new election. And I apologize, should have used better terminology, but for this specific decision they're going to have to make in just 4 months. Because because a lot of people expect that decision to happen way down the road. They're not expecting it today, or not today, but in this new timeline. And we've seen that when we try to make this change very quickly and very abruptly, there are unintended consequences for that decision. And it's just it's people, right? You got to try to meet them where they're
and
at.
I appreciate your energy, and I co-chair the Voters' Rights Caucus, and I know that the media and others do a lot of educating on ballots, printing copies of ballots, and sending out sample ballots, some organizations. So you and I think we're close, but we're going to have to agree to disagree. That I think the voters would be, I think it'd be much easier. But thank you so much.
Let's hope to make it easier for them, so thank you.
Senator, okay, pass. All right, Senator Dixon, you had closing remarks on your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do respectfully request this board look favorably on this bill today. And as you can see today, there are some real issues in Gwinnett County with our school board. It's been on the news quite a bit lately, and going nonpartisan would simply take politics off of our school board and start to remove them from the school system, so educators can focus on the education of our children in Gwinnett. Thank you very much.
Okay. Senator Butler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to make a couple comments about this bill and moving from partisan elections to nonpartisan. And it's been proven that people fare better in a general election than they do in primary, because not as many people come out to vote during a primary. It's not the best way for this state to hold elections. We actually all know that. But it appears to me that because Gwinnett County, Cobb County, there's been more voting by black people. And we have elected women to lead. All of a sudden, and I've been here a long time, and I've seen this issue over and over and over again when things change, when they're no longer white people in charge, then let's change this, because this isn't right. when black people are in charge, change this because this isn't right. So we need to really take a look at what everybody here has said. Not just people that are for, but people that are against as well. Because we all have a point. We all have a point to make. We all have our own opinions. And so before we move forward, trying to make these changes in counties that are progressing, and that's what you call progressive. Things change. They can't stay the same always. And I just want to add my 2 cents to this 25-cent conversation.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank you,
Senator
Mr.
Butler.
Chairman.
Senator Wow.
Me? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to move to table this vote because I think actually we've heard a pretty good solution here today that I think serves as a reasonable compromise that would serve the goal that I think all of us sitting here have, which is to serve the will and the interests of the majority of people who live in Gwinnett. And even though, like I spoke about earlier, that we have a wealth of data on this question specifically, I am open to the idea that Senator Dixon brought up and a couple of other people brought up that sometimes opinions of our residents and our voters can change over time, and voter interests deserve to be heard when we're making a decision on this scale. Because, you know, our job here is not to serve our individual interests or what I think is right or what Senator Butler thinks is right, but to represent what the majority of our communities think and what they elected us to do. So what I would like to suggest is to table this vote for today and to open up this discussion to make this question about whether our voters and our residents want a nonpartisan Board of Education, make it a referendum question on the ballot in November, give adequate time for everyone on both sides to weigh in and make sure that we're doing what people want us to do. I think that's a fair compromise. I think I've heard a lot of people say they're open to getting more input, and that is my suggestion to table this vote for today.
So you're making a motion to
Yes, I'm
table?
making a motion to table.
Senator Butler?
I just wanted to second because you didn't hear me.
Okay. Senator Butler, second. All in favor of the table, raise your right hand. All opposed, raise your right hand. Your motion dies, lack of votes.
So extreme
All right.
when you say it like that. Dies.
Senator Gooch?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, Senator Dixon and I have had conversations about this topic for, I guess, for months now, and I have, I would say, some conflicting feelings about it as well. But I come from a very partisan part of the state, as all of you know. I have a great deal of respect for the senators that I serve with, Democrat and Republican, Senator Merritt, Senator Al, Senator Butler. But today I heard a lot of things in this room that have, to be honest with you, just totally offend me. A lot of comments of racism, bigotry, talking about suppressing the vote. This bill doesn't talk about that, in my opinion. This bill should be more about the kids of our state, and it should be about the future of our workforce and about how some of these children may not ever get a chance to go to school if we don't help them. And we put a bunch of money into this educational system in this state, and it should be based on their future. But instead, we had the chairperson of the school board of Gwinnett County to come in here and make the comments that she made and refuse to take questions. She represents the entire Board of Education. She was the only one that was sent down here today because she's the representative of that board. I don't know of any other person in the room that's a school board member of Gwinnett County that signed up to testify. She refused to talk. She refused to take questions from me. I had some sincere questions. I would have loved to have heard her answer, but she refused to take questions from us, and that's unfortunate. And I think the citizens of Gwinnett County were mistreated today in that sense. They were not represented regardless of which party or regardless of what skin color. I'm not a racist. I've never been a racist, and I'm offended by that. And with that, I'll make a motion we do pass LC number 471420 of Senate Bill 369.
Do we have a second?
I second that motion.
Senator Al.
Thank you. Just one last comment before we vote. I don't think I've heard an answer to this question of whether or not the people and the voters of Gwinnett, if the majority of them want this bill. So I don't think, if we cannot answer this question, I don't see how we can, in good conscience, move forward with this vote today. I just want that stated for the record.
And under discussion, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
Senator Al, I've asked that same question about the citizens from Buckhead who want to form Buckhead City. So I think that may be something you and I can sit down and have a conversation about, and maybe come to a definition of exactly what voter suppression or allowing the citizens to speak out actually means. Thank you.
Senator Butler.
I turned it on before.
Okay.
I've already made
All right. We have a motion and a second. Do pass. All in favor, raise your right hand. You got 4. All opposed, raise your right hand. The bill passes 4-2. We thank you for y'all coming today, and the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.